Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that is to talk about the narcissist or the psychopath and sort of feeling deserted. Feeling abandoned. But feeling deserted is a different type. It arouses or cultivates or curates a different type of fear. It's a very specific type of fear when we talk about the spectrum of emotions, which is really truly becoming like a hot topic now. I feel like we're on the verge of more of that becoming the norm, particularly as like we get into the pronouns thing and the empowerment thing and everything coming up. So these are really things that are going to be on the horizon. So it's great that you're sort of finding your horizon in all this. And when we talk about feeling deserted, that's different than sort of like this abandonment. And so we're going to dive into that question. And of course, sort of the flip side, like why? People always ask why and then how to. So we're going to get into all that. But before we zoom in, I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Thank you so much for your donations. It really does help support and keep the channel going. So thank you so much. And I also appreciate your comments and questions. So if you have any comments or questions or something you really want to get out of there, discuss, or just sort of share with the community, please leave comments, like, and of course subscribe to get all the current info. We have a huge library of videos here that we have done throughout the years, and we're sort of getting back on track a little bit more solid as your buddy Peace and Harmony here, have been out for some period of time due to an unexpected illness. So we're navigating that. We're good now, and appreciate your love, support, and patience. So we're sort of zooming back to this feeling of being deserted. So that is kind of the feeling is like it has almost been intentional for your loss, for your defeat, for your failure, and sort of this sort of slow, painful, excruciating sort of death or feeling of loss, particularly loss of this companion, which in your mind looms as your connection to humanity, love, a certain part of yourself. But maybe you knew them really young when you were young, or perhaps this person has been there. Maybe they welcomed you into the world. Maybe they were the one who knew you before you sort of knew life itself. So they hold this sort of special significance in your heart and in your mind and in your body and in your etheric energy field, which means it's really then gone into your subconscious, your sort of game book for what you do, expect, hope, and are willing to do, and what you manifest or realize. So whether it's on the negative or the uptick, the higher energy, the positive, it really does become an episode or requirement of healing that space with knowledge. And particularly the knowledge that you get from the help. Like, let's say you were to go to, the traditional healthcare field, and you go to like talk therapy or all these cognitive behavioral therapies. So those are approaches, those are perspectives. And Peace and Harmony here, I kind of am into more of a holistic, sort of global, sort of a healing path that I feel for people in my study of psychology, English, education, essentially basically right there up against my master's. Why did I pursue this? Because there's a specific passion or drive that I feel to help to heal or help the individual, namely heal or lessen hurt or future burden. The past hurt becomes a future burden. The past hurt becomes a future burden. In fact, I'm going to write that down. Past hurt becomes a future burden. Why is this when we talk about being deserted? You might have literally or figuratively, emotionally or spiritually felt this, had this happen to you. Meaning like it's the feeling that a guide or relationship or someone, something, some dream that your heart aspired to led you along a path with a companion that you felt really hooked into, buddy to buddy, chums, belly to belly, toe to toe. You could be honest. This was your confidant. This is where you let it all hang out. You let it all air out. You get crazy. You get funny. You get silly. But it eventually, in a relationship with someone who ends up deserting you, it's a different feeling and a plague of hurt and sort of a scar on the etheric body, which blocks and prevents from moving forward. Namely because it's like an emotional cave, which is so difficult to access. Unless you had, climbing gear, you knew how to shimmy down a cliff, back into this sort of cave that you didn't even know how to access. You're expected to sort of have this resiliency and bounce back after being deserted. It's not the same. It is not the same of just sort of having a relationship that crumbled, a dream where something went missing, or a goal that just didn't ever realize. So when we talk about a narcissist or a psychopath, so someone with a pathological sense of self-importance coupled with a lack of empathy. So if we can kind of get it really simple, meaning that someone who is going to be willing to use others, meaning sort of they feel distant. How does it feel? It's a terrible feeling. How does it feel? It feels distant, cold, perhaps maybe the middle of nowhere, but yet on the outside, it's sort of you're everywhere. So it has this sort of coating, if you will, to it. Not like a sugar coating, but like an emotional sugar coat to it, where it always has this sort of guttural, or what are the foodies calling it? This sort of gustatory. You gotta love that word. Your buddy Peace and Harmony here, English, psychology, did a lot of advertising, new product development in, and into that in innovation. And sort of like, we gotta save you like 1,000 miles right now. We gotta save you decades of hurt and time. It's sort of like if you're on my watch, emotional pain, it has its own time zone. It sort of can ricochet and come back like a UFO, meaning you think you know its course of how it's going to go and affect you. You really don't. It might have take off and give you this sort of gustatory, guttural, and then sort of heart, this sort of real internal landscape, for lack of a better, sort of place that you're thrust on to. Sort of like you've got that, but sort of like some semi-landing gear. You don't know how to sort of puff up the parachute or get the things going to navigate yourself like onto like whatever back where you were, without feeling that you've just gone through like a major time, a time machine, back into some sort of other time and culture that you don't even know the language. You're used to maybe even talking in code. So when you talk about being deserted, it's kind of like you're being intentionally, deliberately, with sort of a feeling of intentional malice, contempt, and scorn. Like, now you figure it out. You figure it out. Like, in other words, there's this feeling of reciprocity, of some sort of grave hurt that you didn't even commit. You don't even have the ability, sensibility, or personality, or tactical emotional gear to commit. So there's this sort of feeling of like guttural, it's like this deep inhale that never exhales, fully exhales. It's sort of that like shock. There's an emotional sort of, if you were to have like a floodgate rushing in. So when you have this feeling of being deserted, it's this sort of really deep feeling of sort of loss of vision that you can only see, a couple feet or an inch in front of you when you're deserted. It might, meaning you feel that you're sort of dropped off like a pizza in the middle and you don't even know it was going to be there and you're not sure where it is, but some scavengers are going to come and take you for bait, take you for food, take you for a carcass. There's this feeling of sort of being then eaten alive, meaning how can I even go on? How can I even conjure this up in my mind? Why? This doesn't seem right. And it's this feeling of utter confusion combined with despair and enigma that you're supposed to foil and solve, yet that no one has given you the pieces, the prompts, the timing, the rule book to get yourself out of there. And if you go to any person or even like your regular doctor, they're going to give you some time. And if you don't fit into this sort of very tiny container, you're not going to get that sort of, what do we call the foodies call it? That sort of gustatory experience that is like a traumatizing gustatory experience, if you will. Like you're being forced to eat some sort of wild, sickly tree, bark, animal, or air that is, you're afraid that you let it in and it's going to sort of tamper you. So it's this, when you go through this feeling, which I feel is a very unique way of those people who are narcissist or psychopathic, how they sort of clean their hands of things. Their hands are clean from the beginning, but they're always looking for a wipe. To them, the way that they navigate their own rule book oftentimes leaves others as part of their own rule book for themselves, which they will hold themselves to and others to without failure, is that, all of a sudden, and you might feel it's because of you, because of your failing, your wrongdoing, your something wrong with your superficial, like your hair, your dress, there's this feeling of like, the what you call, oh my God, if that isn't overused right now, that and awesome. I mean, we're talking before it was used just in the everyday, like, we're talking about genuine smiles, genuine feelings of emoji, genuine heartfelt things. And it might have a bow on it. It might have, we don't know what's in it, but we're talking, and that concerns me right now, because now, God love you. And believe me, you're going to get through with this. You are okay. Don't worry about it. People freak out. See, they're trying to shovel up that which they feel inside. And it's kind of like their own inner coal shovel that they're like carrying around, and this is going to light the way and then dump. It's like having a huge, just sort of feeling like buried. There's all sorts of ways people might describe it, but other people can't recognize it, experience it, share it with you, or validate it. That becomes part of the problem, and where we've sort of why we've created the channel, because most people, or even doctors, etc., they don't get it. They don't. A lot of psychology right now deals with the mind. In other words, if you go in there with this, they're going to be like, oh, they might prescribe something, but also, you might just have some anxiety and you need to go, this is just some anxiety. You got to be resilient. And then they might like send you to a class or read some books on like mindfulness training, that you're supposed to pick up and you're supposed to, do something with. And it's all sort of in the mind. It's just, you don't have the real, what I would call the etheric field, the kinesthetic, the body effect, meaning it goes, your mind is literally putting you, what you felt was commit. It's literally like putting down your own lock and your own cell door, and then you're just sitting back like, yep, I'm in prison, help get me out. And you kind of put yourself there, but you don't see it, even though that person sort of led you to this behavior, if you will. It's like you're doing a dance with them, and then you do the most beautiful, what you've been, twist, dip, whatever. If you're a guy, you've got the biggest, strong, whatever flip you're throwing, and then you're there, and then you're expecting the catch, or you're expecting the nice, and then next thing you know, you're dropped off in this sort of garage lost feeling of like, how did I was just dancing a minute ago. I was, and then it's just, this sort of real shock. And, if you go and you try to talk to people, oh, well, let's just go get a cup of coffee, and they're just sort of, some people, it might sort of resonate, but it's it's a long lasting, it fills you to the marrow. It fills your boots. It fills your shoes. It fills your, basically what you are, your emotional backpack. Maybe you're carrying it all in front of you. Maybe you're saddled up with 60 pounds of sand or chicken fat like Oprah in the 90s when she lost all that weight. Remember Oprah in the 80s or 90s when she lost 75 pounds and she did the old, this is my garbage bag of the fat that I lost. Look at me now. She was smiling from head to toe. So there's this feeling, of a very discreet sort of intentionality to the setting up of this negative feeling. Meaning it's a feeling of well, if I could do something that would really send the message to them, and they might be brewing on it when you're sort of deserted. It means you're set up for this lifelong challenge that they sort of tap out on and leave you with no recourse because they don't have any empathy or any conscience. So they don't feel that they've done anything wrong, owe you a conversation, have the heart to be in it together. They're just not, they don't share that time, space, and etheric energy zone. It's literally like a no-fly, no-go zone for these folks. Yet you're expected then to go through this dangerous fly zone and do it pronto, immediately, day one, from the moment that you have this exposure or whatever it is, this backstab, something in business with a narcissist is treacherous. That feeling of being deserted. Oh, we're in this big deal together, man. Ain't that awesome? Ain't that cool? We're going to do this. We're going to get that. We're going to ride around. We're going to throw money out the air on Michigan Avenue. We're going to toot our horn with our new Lamborghini or whatever. If you're in business and you've got a lot of these goals, or, you're a newlywed and you're like, oh my God, we're going to take these flipping freak out vacations, we're going to go skinny dip, all these different sort of, once in a lifetime sort of cool that your prefrontal cortex gets then wired and wired and wired, meaning the neurons that wire together, fire together. Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. A great book, a fantastic gentleman, really a Hercules, sort of heralding a lot of progress. If you haven't checked out Dr. Joe Dispenza and his books, his meditations, you should, because he believes in the neuroplasticity and sort of he understands the induction of trauma. Sort of the induction of trauma is kind of like the biggest, strongest emotional hoe, not like a ho-ho, not like a chocolate ho-ho. I'm talking about a fielding hoe. I'm talking about the depth of meaning. If there was an emotional hoe that could go and scoop out some earth. Anyone here ever done any gardening, planting, seen a farm, seen a forest? Anyone here seen a meadow? Anyone ever know anything about roots and how they connect to things and how strong? If you look out in nature, just go check it out. Just look at, try to push over a big tree. It ain't going anywhere. It is anchored, rooted. It's wired and fired. So in other words, all those different days of sunshine and wind and rain that go to make that big, strong tree over maybe 300, 400 years. If you look at a big, big, huge one, even larger, go check out the redwoods in California if you want to have a life experience event. That's the awesome, that's the sublime. Maybe that was the narcissist to you, or the psychopath. It's not awesome. Here's your burrito bowl. Oh, awesome, thank you. Awesome? Are you misusing the word awesome? It's not peace and harmony trying to sort of rain on your parade. What I'm trying to get you to sort of really comb down through with a fine-tooth comb. How many thought they could never do it or be strong enough, or their life was so gunked up with crap, just like hair. Have you ever had a comb and you used to wear so much hair product? There's no way you could get a comb through it. Wasn't that in the 90s? I mean, forgive me if I didn't put a whole bottle of gel on my hair, on my head, to get some sort of sleek look. I don't know, that was disgusting, okay? Whatever hairspray you then load on that to get, sort of this foil-proof hair. You expect to be sort of the invincible hair goddess or god, you were king of whatever. So it's important to realize that this emotional hoe, that they sort of, they know that because they know that they're getting in deep, because they see how they have helped to wire and help to plant. And it's important that you examine those plants. The plants that you got might be a little different than what you thought you were seeding with them. So you're going to have two completely separate, different, forests or landscapes. You're going to have you thought you were going to go to Hawaii, have these love affairs every night in this new home together, whatever if you can put that into a box or a part of a triangle, like this great book that I'm reading by Vincent Jenna, that I recommend you get, The Secret That's Holding You Back. I'm still reading it, but I love his diagrams and his additions, and I definitely am sort of talking about that place as well with him, or like inducted by him. Like, in other words, meaning this etheric field, you must understand your heart, this is my understanding. So this is what I'm bringing to the table when you talk about sort of the trauma, the very specific type of trauma that is inducted like to a hall of fame. Welcome to your emotional hall of fame of hurts. You're going to become this is one of the greatest hits that they ever do, is being deserted. This is basically big ammo in their gun pile, or whatever they use, their ways of living. So this is how they do people. This is how it's done. They sort of get in there, with sort of who they are. Meaning, it could be circumstantial, it could be familial, it could be from your school, your place of work, your neighborhood, some sort of nook or cranny that there's something about them, a je ne sais quoi, that you feel that is special. God knows they felt there was something special about them, okay, to treat people this way. So that's sort of the blunder. That's sort of the mistake. That's how things sort of get fouled up, is, the perception of them, their being who they are, is utterly iconic and significant to you. So they represent sort of some rank, not file, but sort of high rank, meaning this is an important touchstone. This is important, like when you're swimming and you touch the back, and this is an important sort of what you've had your hand on, and meaning a relationship. It's an important sort of, and then, and then what it leaves you with after that sort of emotional belly turn. It's a very specific place in the emotional etheric field that not everybody has gone to. So it's important to understand, articulate, explain, and then help you sort of identify and then get in the same a feeling of understanding safety and why you can't live without them. There's this sort of, I can't, I can't live without them, or there's something that's very peculiar, insignificant, but it's a deep gouge. Just like when you go a price gouge, you're like, this pizza used to $7, now it's $12. Or gas prices. It has that same, and that's inspiration. So the root word of inspire, sort of in spiritus, sort of the spirit coming in. So they are oftentimes very inspirational to you. And that's an awesome thing. And I use awesome meaning with the wondrous, the sublime, hooked into the all that's out there. So your sort of source energy, your source, it'll make you hot, it'll make you sweat, it'll make your heartbeat faster, it'll make you want to run a marathon, it'll make you want to have a goal, it'll make you want to learn cooking, getting dressed, having a job, going to college. Inspiration is sort of this flint on, meaning the two coming together, it creates a new, and then the source is a light. So together, if you kind of understand what abandoned or being sort of deserted, sort of that hook and spark, sort of that was shared together, and that you felt, that it was together. It's this very specific type of internal imprinting, like Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's a very specific, it has a very specific road or path that it's going to take. Literal, figural, meaning it caused you gustatory or behavioral changes. It took you for a ride somewhere unknown, thrilling, exciting, gorgeous, plentiful, that which was, it captured you totally. And then so it gets embedded in your prefrontal cortex, where you plan, look forward, have judgment, morality. It becomes part of your plan, part of your destiny or destination. Feeling wired, meaning this car needs to go places now. Because of this, there's this feeling, and it's usually this really sort of sweeping, like a big deep wave, this whoosh, it whisks you off your feet. It's literally like a roller coaster. If you haven't been on one, do you remember you just sort of stepped in, here we go, and then, you went upside down all around, but you knew it was going to end? Unfortunately, when you have this feeling of being deserted, it's feeling that you're put into a land that you don't know, and you're expected to go somewhere and go there now, fast, and whatever else was in that inspiration or that fuel for you. Where you're supposed to become, and then there's this big spark, inspiration that drives you forth. But oftentimes it's more reactatory than sort of where you can, what you would have as owner or connected to your well-being, what the source energy wants for you. The source energy, what is that? Your higher being, your wellness, your happiness, your health, your enjoyment of things. You're not like feeling in a prison cell, uncomfortable, cold, dank, and without or isolated. So, and then there's this very sort of gustatory, solitary, almost confinement feeling to a desertion in a relationship. The narcissist, who has a pathological sense of self-importance. So they have something that you sort of get a glimpse on, and you they sort of indoctrinate you into their dream, and then they fit you into its making, but not into the good stuff. Sometimes it's a feeling. It's just a feeling that, you know, you're cut out, like almost like in a movie, cut. You're just, all of a sudden, you're cut, and you're like, I was just doing it, and they're like, yeah, you're done. You know, you get that inner breath, you get that inhale. You know, that's not just like a relaxing, like you're just walking and you're inhaling and exhaling and you're not thinking. This is it has a different air feel, if you will. Meaning, in a narcissist relationship, a pathological sense of self-importance, meaning for them, they've got their own glory somewhere. They've got their own, and you, because you expected your need to share in it, it doesn't mean that there is an equal. So there's this real distinct sort of almost plate tectonics that are moving and grinding against each other. You know, that forceful in the energy field. Those sort of, you could have some sort of emotional plate tectonics that go on underneath and sort of give you that feeling of sort of this irresistible foil that you it's not anything you could resist. You know, in other words, there's nothing. It is not your choice, but it's where it is your finding. So it creates this sort of like, you're now having to be you have an inner new founder feel, but you know, in this desertion. And this can keep you stunted and stuck. When a narcissist, so I'm kind of trying to go back and forth between what happens and what's going on within you. If we can do that as part of this exercise here in understanding, if we can take you through what I feel then through the understanding, and then to the other side, just as if you were in one of those mazes at a restaurant as a kid. They give you a crayon, you're at the other side, and you're like, okay, that was easy, give me a tougher one. Oh, here arrives my meal. And then you forget all about it. But don't forget this one. This one is meant for you, because it's kind of like the bringers of the darkness or something like that. You might want to personalize it to you. What was some of the main, feelings? Because there's part of it, it lays out, I feel, that those internal plate tectonics, your inner movement is almost reactatory or in a dance with them. And sometimes the dance, it don't feel good, it don't look good, and it don't even go. Sometimes you ain't even dancing now. You're like, me dance? No, huh? So you're and so feeling stuck, blocked, can't move on, can't move forward, and you can't see it, but yet you're there. So that's the weird problem with the desertion. It's almost the intentionality from the source of an individual who has a pathological sense of self-importance. So it's more than what is, to them, they're what is called the self-absorbed. What is that person? Someone who is constantly all about themselves. Yet so even when you're in a relationship, they're deep all about themselves, and you get to be like the fan who isn't there. But it's very strange. It's a very strange feeling. It's kind of like they want you to feel as if you're so lucky, as if to have bought tickets to witness their drama, i.e. their life unfolding, and you have to somehow watch me and simultaneously not, and by the way, get out of here and don't stumble on anything while you're going. Yet they've put you in a minefield where you fall over scathed, get your foot burned, your heart lashed, your throat lassoed, and God knows whatever else you had to do or go through momentarily. A feeling of espionage, that you were then made into a spy who didn't belong there, or you felt then you have to spy on some unknown to get yourself home again. This is really an awkward feeling. Most people don't enjoy or get along with people while they're trying to figure it out. So it becomes this very solitary solitude game, which can go on for some time if you allow it. But in the processing of it must happen. It must happen. When someone who has a pathological self-importance, my understanding is they're going to use and do whatever, no matter who, what, or their means to get them there. And so that you might feel a little bit of taking advantage of and being used, or being a observer that you were supposed to take, and this constant feeling of being obliterated the moment that they make you witness, they want to tell you, you're that further being lost, in the same episode. It's like in the same moment, if you will. This becomes a real astronomical sort of partner with your being of how you get the heck out, or unhooked, or liberated, or free from that sort of boxed in feeling. Because like Vince Jenna is saying, those feelings are literally like a box, or they're in a compartmentalized place. So they compartmentalize you, and you might not have then compartmentalized them, or maybe you did, in a way that's creating all this anxiety and destruction of being and lack of happiness within, because of those ups and peaks, and it doesn't jive with the ups and peaks of what you think life might be supposed to bring to you. And so when somebody, a person, has a pathological sense of self-importance, you can't, in other words, you're there, you're feeling that the intertwining should have brought you a different feeling other than what is presented to you. In other words, I thought I switched on in the we're okay, we're safe, and all of a sudden, no, we're not safe. This is not good. That, here comes being the desertion, meaning they lead you to this place, and then you think it's closer, better, and then boom, they're not available. It's this being deserted. This is part of their playbook. It's very, it leaves you with feeling empty, a feeling of sort of an emptiness or an echo chamber. You might feel within, and you don't get it because everything else around you might not be playing that out. In other words, you're sort of left alone with this emotional football, and here you're on tackle duty. You're the one who signed up for tackle, and you're like, I don't even have a head helmet on. I don't have shoulder pads. I don't even think I'm dressed up for this game right now. Like, I'm not even a football player. I haven't even studied football. I haven't even had a football coach, and you don't even have the gear. Okay, you don't even have the protection. You don't even have the whistle or the training, or know the sequence, or know the rules of the game that they're putting in. That's the feeling of being deserted, meaning it's like you're still alive. You're still in the lava belt. You're still, and then, here you're sort of actively being abandoned, deserted. You're like while you're in the relationship, and that's very tough to handle. And for them, this is normal, natural. Just get over it. Poof, whatever they were going to say to you, they will minimize your feelings and make them invisible. Get out of here. They're going to continue on with their pathological sense of self-importance journey. Or if you're with a psychopath, they're going to continue on their lack of consciousness journey. So you got to kind of step aside and realize the ticket, what was the witness, what was the show, what is. And then when you can see what it is and sort of learn by looking at it and having discussion with your fellows, like here, you can see this is just how they operate. And this is how they are. And as you grow and mature and you step back, you realize you cannot tolerate the emotional whiplash somehow. You have to stop playing that. You have to get out. And when you're being deserted, it's almost as if they're putting you into the lava field. They're like, now here's your they're trying to hand you your challenge, or you're handed a challenge, and you just feel, I don't know. That's a terrible feeling, because you don't know how you got there, or I would say the worst is the big why, because there's all these questions there that never get unanswered somehow. They go left behind. Why? It's just like, why is this? This is ridiculous. This ridiculous disgust. And you don't realize, that is what has happened, and that is what has set the chart to be sort of, you're kind of like then feeling like a debris of their fantasy. You're feeling like debris, garbage, not even a person, a Homo sapien. Why? Because you feel you weren't treated or respected that way, and they respect something from which they have not given, or you aren't even, within the footing to be able to experience or give back. Namely, that is not having to explain and justify your existence or reason for being, basically existing. It's sort of like you're being deserted real time, like in the midst of, and you're, there's this, internal shock. And when we talk about electrics, anyone had an electric shock? Anyone ever seen like an electric fence? My grandfather had one. Don't go over there. Of course, we go right over there. Zzz. Now, why? Understand why Grandpa said don't go over there. What are the challenges though? That's, and so that's like the experience of a grandfather to a child. That's not, that's not abandonment. That's saying, hey, don't. It's not saying you're stupid. Hey, just FYI, you might not know this kid, Chummy-o, but there's electric. Don't go, don't touch, don't go. Well, kids, they don't know better. If you give them a challenge, well, then here they go. Don't sleep with your phone. Next thing you know, they've got their phone in their pillow. Don't eat candy before they go to bed. Next thing you know, they've got candy wrappers. It's this sort of thing in the challenge, so that was like, so that's like one of my, and then of course, you realize why it can cut your skin. You get the shock. Or anyone ever, have had that shock of, you're trying the battery on your car, or, you're trying, someone's trying electric. That don't feel good. In fact, in studies of psychology, electric shock is given as a behavioral deterrent. For example, if you press a lever and it gives you a voltage, you're not going to press it again. But if the reward is great enough, you'll press it. Meaning, if the need is great enough, then you'll go through, that threshold of pain. They'll hold it on 500 volts or whatever. You'll grab that marshmallow, or you'll grab that whatever it is behind the zzz, and you'll but then the pain, if it gets too much, then you will stop. The feeling, the narcissistic use of deserting others is a similar zzz. In other words, like, you think it's so good without, in other words, they'll set you up for a failure that they can then handle, and then tell you you can't do that, obviously, and then tell you that's the problem with you. In other words, they will set you up and then call you out for something that they set you out for, and expect that to be the end of the game for you. And it doesn't always end there. It can't end there for you. Your life is not a game, and it doesn't end at this person, but they will make you perceive, think, feel, understand and etherically try to get you entangled, enmeshment. They'll give you that reinforcement. Here's that hug, here's that kiss, here's that smile, here's that date, here's that picture. And then, and then here they come again. They've deserted you back again. They think you're gonna jump for joy. Nope, ain't worth it. You eventually realize what they're putting you through. So in other words, they want you to sort of be there for the banter, miss out on your life, which is part of the big problem of the feeling of being deserted. Is you're put in the middle of nowhere with intention in a particular spot that you're going to be perpetually told that this is something inherently wrong with you. The narcissist sets you up for that, just like your hair is a rat's nest, or what you're something indelible about you. Your feet are this way, your hands are that way, your ears, you're that. You might have a hair out of place. It's just like they'll try to ridicule the normal, the natural. And so really what I kind of feel is that then there has to be a healing rule book, which is what we talk about here on the channel. Coming back though to being deserted, meaning like, where did they drop you off at? Usually something on their court, that it might have been at a movie theater. Let's say they're a really big movie buff actor, so it might have been like at that particular juncture. What I feel is, and sort of know and own the juncture of this feeling, and know it from a distance, because that's how they do people. That's how they do people. Get to know it from a distance, find a way. You have to find a way to look at it somehow, with calm and with free will and with clarity. You have to find a way to sort of unstick, like almost like an emotional suction cup that has more force. You don't know quite how to get it off. Like an emotional suction cup is this sort of desertion, meaning feeling that they have put you in a place that is their stronghold, your weakhold, and saying almost like, if you can prove it to me, if you can live your life like I tell you how, or how I expect you to, meaning I want you to have or be this and this. You must be of this, their qualifications, almost as if they have a checklist. And indeed, I think that they probably do. But don't fault them for it. That's just who they are. That's their culture. That's their ambiance. And so do you see then the difficulty, the despair, and the scorn and the anger, which is a feeling for your needs not being met in this sort of emotional wormhole, if you will. Sort of you can't stop the flow of it sort of going down, and there's this sort of helplessness, and then the willingness then to see and then have the lights come on while you're in the apparent wormhole, but then you're somehow out, meaning you're saying that wormhole in other words, that has a lot of, I would say, emotional draw, an emotional undertow. It pulls you there all the time. Emotionally habituated. Dr. Joe Dispenza, what wires together fires together. So it's kind of like, once you learn to swim, you know how. Once you ride a bike, you know how. And once you have that knowledge, that gives you confidence and wherewithal to handle what might come your way. However, you need to understand and have resistance, meaning demagnetize your etheric and your body. But see that there's a danger, there's an inherent risk in what you've been bred into. Why? Because part of your dream, you're looking forward, your prefrontal cortex, your dream, even what you wanted or you felt that they wanted, but what you sort of dreamt up for yourself. This is your I am talking now. in real time, meaning it didn't die out with this person. They're going to kind of think that, put you in a situation where you're going to kind of die out, snuffed. Do you remember back in the day, my family was always really good about having candles on Sunday dinner. And do you remember those little silver, you could have an extinguisher? They sort of do that to you. They sort of, there's a feeling of snuffing you out in that sort of, and see, in other words, it's, what do you call when you put a twist in the thing, or salt and salt in someone's wound? They try to sort of add that with their own twist and flair, which is sort of an ego stamp, if you will. And part of your prefrontal cortex, your dreaming, your wanting, your belonging, your judgment, your morality, all that begins to be sort of unseated while it's seated, meaning you're growing it, and then they're taking and removing all of your field and taking it to market, and you don't get any of the share. There's a feeling of, yet this is mine, this is my ground, this is my side, this is my homeland. There's a feeling of this accomplishment that you hold. With a narcissist, oftentimes will take you to the heights and then the depths, and then it doesn't always unfold, and you get the chance to unfold it. There's a feeling, though, that of a time that this is, then you sort of tweeze yourself out of it. What does that mean? Why? Because part of your emotional etheric field, that which precedes you, your subconscious, that which humans, we don't know about yet, and that's not your conscious mind. So the part of you that keeps your heartbeat your heart going, your lungs, your digestion, so your central nervous system is functioning. So you've got all this great stuff going on automatically already going for you. Don't worry about it, but realize that the feeling of desertion means that you're almost feeling that you're lost and you don't have anything or what it takes to get or plant happiness from there. It feels like it's been scalded, it's been burned, it's been charred, destroyed, ruined, whatever else. And then you might then describe your I am etherically, your energy in motion, and then that sort of then begins driving the ship, begins motivating you. And then it might motivate you to need to heal, meaning, take a look at it, like literally be able to examine. Let's take a look at and this is done in the etheric fields, and sort of regaining your etheric energy, that around you, self-respect. I don't want to feel this anymore. I don't want to see myself heartbroken anymore. You might have an image. You remember the Jerry Springer show where those people would call each other out, or cheaters, whatever, and then you did, and then there would be chairs flying, microphones flying, people would be yelling, getting pissed off, they'd call people, and there would be all this. Is that who you want to be? Is that who you want to become? Is that what you want on down your path for you? Yes or no? For a lot of people, you gotta find, man, I don't want to be that which is they're sort of signing onto you like a rubber suit, or if you stay with them, I don't want to be or have that sort of what creates this sort of monster, not a monster, but a fear, a terror. And so, one of our viewers asked a question: if you're with this sort of relationship long enough, can it cause you these sort of mental problems? Anyone want to volunteer for emotional or mental detriment? Anyone want to make themselves more stupid? So it does create, like I think a viewer responded, this feeling of paranoia. Like when you're being deserted, In other words, you're being like almost deserted while they're supposed to be there. It's like finding out at the important meeting that your business partner ain't your business partner anymore, and you had no clue. What? And then you're expected to go up there and keep a straight face, while you found this grave, these are the sort of episodes that the psychopath, those who have no conscience, this is what they leave at their front door, their back door. These sort of, you're kidding me. Like, these are your people where they were married to someone for 40 years, and then they deserted them apparently just one day, something, and they're the ones with all the financials and etc., or whatever might have been twisted into them. They're the one with the talent, the something. So there's this feeling of espionage, meaning they desert you, but you still have to like observe on what did this counter intelligence do to me. In other words, how do I undo or heal from being this feeling? Because that feeling then creates this ultra reality, which it can be very uncomfortable, but it can be set with a lot of learning. And there's going to be people who can reach in emotionally and help pull you back up to the living and the breathing, and not just surviving, but really moving on. And that in and of itself, no longer being willfully not subjecting yourself to replaying that desertion, meaning giving some ownership for the 2 feet for where you are. The problem, I think, is a lot of people, if they have gone through this, they cannot own or observe their own I am or something without this person or without this negation. And that can create a feeling of real continuity to the desertion, meaning all of your highs seem then connected. And if it were not, for this person, meaning then they have this indelible place within you, which is okay. Give that to them. But only you assign, what type of shape, as if it were on a chess, are you giving them the position of king or queen, or maybe, the one with the horse, are they instrumental to your team, to your emotional etheric I am of all your emotions in the spectrum of your being? Because if they're not helping and supportive of that genuine organic, if they've sort of if they've refused that and that part of you, and if you do, in other words, you feel that they have the very cell of your being, but yet that which they created, part of the relationship. So it's this very, what we call in psychology is a discordant feeling. And then I feel that sort of emotional knot is very difficult to get out, and what it is, feeling like that temporary feeling of sort of being emotionally out of balance while you're trying to not engage while it's there present within you. In other words, looking at something and then being able to not be fearful or just be in strength and not all the despair. So that is very tricky. That comes with some practice. That's what the emotement is all about in the recovery date, and the writing and the exercises that we do here are to help counteract that being deserted. It's kind of like the old narcissist. Oh, look, I've got this, I've got that, I have. It's their egotistical, and then your desertion is usually supposed to counteract what they have. But what's problematic with that whole situation is it pathologically negates your ability to be, exist, see, sense, and know your own strength, that it is as it is inherent to you, or what you might feel is full living, or what you might sort of know you're capable of. It's sort of like I always know I am capable of more. What is it? And you can keep asking those positive questions, but part of the narcissist hover is that they will always come back, and that, because this is what they do, years, months, as if just forget, hey, and then they'll try to bring you back, and then you'll have either a feeling or just delete or block, or maybe you don't even know. But the desertion is part of their problematic way of attaching to others, meaning the narcissist tends to cling to other people, known as supply, for their own well-being, for their own getting. It's not a relationship the way you might feel or define it to be. That's the problem. There's a distinct language barrier. There's a very, they don't have the same grip on emotions for relationship. That is not their style. They're too big, they're too cool for school, okay? They have a sort of grandiose that's always sort of putting them onward, that you're not deployed to. What you have to do is say, I am not going to be then dressed for their next scenario. In other words, I'm not going to emotionally groom myself to even feel deserted. In other words, that is all sort of melted away. They didn't desert you. They just can't commit. They just have an emotional language deficit. There's an emotional barrier that creates tension. And as I was thinking about this, it's sort of like being put on and riding on a camel, meaning there's a feeling of desert to it, literally desertion, meaning there ain't no water, there ain't no food, there ain't no transportation, there isn't any way out of here. And then I'm what am I supposed to do? Live a slow, painful death? What am I supposed to do? And how many? Oh, that ain't living. But it's very difficult to just spring up out of, it takes some sort of understanding about that emotional desert, where you feel that there then aren't resources made available to you. In fact, you feel impaired or even handicapped. This is very scary, uncomfortable. This desertion, abandonment. And what's really interesting, I find, is it is that very exact setting in the exact juncture that the narcissist and the psychopath themselves, I feel the most inadequate and ill-equipped and ill-prepared and not able. But so what they do, maybe it's just a mystery of human sapiens, and just how they protect themselves as a method of self-defense, as a method of self-repair then for you, is to realize, hey, shoot that golden arrow. Remember that song? Hey, shoot me with your arrow. Let me drink you from your poison cup, Britney Spears or whatever. Oh, isn't it cool? Yeah. Ooh, you're giving me the golden cup. You're giving me the poison arrow. Whatever. It used to be kind of cool, right? Until it ain't cool, okay? Until it really messes people up. And you might been doing that jig, dancing to, I'm drinking the poison, and it doesn't really get you the sort of traction that you feel you need or want now to go somewhere, or the tactics. So in other words, the tactics that they literally deploy is that sort of, hey, you're here at a situation and they know you don't want it, you can't handle it, it's not what's expected, it's not right for you, it doesn't make sense, it's like a puzzle that can never get solved. And if you're there, your good is okay done for them, because they're going to go somewhere and they're going to do this to the same someone, and this is just how they do. They sort of maim and like leave you in, what do you call the side of the road, a little bit feeling like you've been ditched. They want, because What? They want that feeling of disrepair, dysregulation then comes about. Dysregulation. How do I regulate this? You know, your panic, okay? It's a natural, organic feeling. Okay, and we're going to wrap this up in about 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know if you guys like the long stuff or the short stuff, but so that feeling, you know, but so let me know. Okay, so meaning that they want you to be sort of in the down, and then so you there's a feeling of like, I have to escape. And it's just like you want to escape where you're at, and that's you. It's this feeling of, I need to escape, and to then feeling all that's going to ensue. So you don't really articulate it, but if you slow it down a little bit, you know, I'm going to be exposed to something I don't know what to do. I'm not going to be able to handle this. Feed myself. I'm going to be cold. I'm going to be without. This is going to happen. I'm going to look stupid. That's usually, I'm going to look stupid. I'm going to be, but what I really feel is that real feeling that the narcissist has then sort of subconsciously, meaning whether they're knowledgeable about it or not, it is that exact feeling that they don't know how to deal with, that they're just like trying to shovel and give you and say, see, I couldn't figure it out, either can you. It's almost like this challenge. And that then if you get to a certain point, then things are supposed to be okay, but then that never comes. The problem is that never comes, and it gives you this feeling then of despair, being deserted. You know, that is, what would you desert other than something, you know, that you don't even, I mean, that's just terrible to feel deserted. It's like you're not one of the flock. You know, that's a terrible feeling. You don't have even the strength of any other fellows, support to be there for you when you're, they see, it's their fear that they beset, and they sort of keep, sort of, I would say, sort of squared off, is repetitively kind of calling you by that same flaw. Rather than being you, they're calling you by the same flaw that they see, that they project, that they are, or their insecurity. They'll sort of put it off on other people automatically, inherently, and it's very hurting, it's very destroying, destructive, and it's very alarming, because it'll take a lot of people out of their life, out of their business, out of their school, out of their home, out of their well-being, you know, when they're having one of these episodes. And it's kind of like an episode that is epic, that you're like, that won an Emmy Award in your heart book. Meaning, it was really grave. It wasn't shallow. The feeling of this, you might say, oh my God, I will never forget that for a lifetime. Because it's so significant, because of that feeling. And whoa, all that it caused for you to do, decide, and how it affected how you're behaving. And a lot of that, for some point then, might have felt out of your control, but it is within your control. Peace and Harmony is here to tell you that it is. But that alarm, that setting off, is sort of an acting out for them. They use that as a defense mechanism to sort of put outside of them that which they can't handle or deal with on their own. I will never forget this one time when I was on the L train in Chicago, okay? And there was a woman with 4 kids, little kids, 4 or 5, you know, and the L is electric train, kind of loud, and it goes all across the city and deep into the subway and underneath and everything. And if you have kids, you know, you got to keep, this woman literally had a ruler with her. These kids were so well behaved. Oh, they were all sitting with their hands, all holding this, not making a word or a peep. And she just kept hitting their hands. You're terrible, you're bad, and she was the one freaking out, and they were all had it together. But I was able to very clearly see, maybe life gave me this moment to discuss with you now, that she was acting out on her children who were not fearful, who were all in alignment with what they had to do for compliance and everything else. But she, maybe the mom, I can't say, but felt insecure, fearful, as well as her right, taking her kids into the city. But she could have seen that they were already well behaved, but she just kept. And it would have hurt to be hit on your hand. There isn't a lot of cushion, okay? So think of it as that. There is a way to that feeling is a feeling that they sort of want you, unfortunately, to have to deal with. But the minute you can see, how you deal with it is saying, I am not deserted. I'm here. And all that I need is here. And I'm able to say and pronounce that now, where before I couldn't. And then it leaves you kind of feeling whole and okay. And then you are all right for yourself and for someone. And you can realize oftentimes where this fear might come from for them, but don't go on leading your life as if your life is always to satisfy the needs of someone and that is your need. Be very, very careful that you're then seeing and owning and not degrading, shaming, or feeling that you have been, or your needs, your I am, has been deserted. Because that vacancy will leave a void in your life and require all sorts of stuffing, sort of disenabling that feeling from being recognized. So become more cognizant of that tool that they used, so you're not sort of gutted out. You're not, you don't have this big hole in your being. In fact, the hole in your being can be sealed up and it can kind of go its own way. It is no longer then a detriment to your being. It is a strength. It is a strength. And then once you do that and then allow yourself to remove the blocks to liberate you for other types, sorts, and experiences of being, having, wanting, desiring, contentment, happiness that isn't degraded or made small or insignificant because of the episode. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share, subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Peace be with you, and have a beautiful day.